Today I'm in the county of Staffordshire in England, and I'm going to be visiting Cannock Chase German War Cemetery. It's a cemetery for German personnel of the First and Second World War. The graves are mostly of sailors and airmen who died in Britain during the two wars. But also there are some graves of soldiers who died in POW camps in Britain. I'm going to visit the notable graves in the cemetery today. There's actually two very senior Nazis buried here. But obviously the majority of the graves are of ordinary servicemen. As you can see, the cemetery is located in a fairly isolated spot. And it's just beyond those trees just in front of us now. The majority of the German war dead who were buried in Britain were exhumed and reburied here in 1959. But there are still around 1,000 German war dead who are buried in different cemeteries across Britain. There's a very large country park here. As you can see, there's a lot of people walking their dogs here. You can see a fence here where the cemetery is located. Obviously I'm going to have to go all the way around to go into the cemetery, but I just wanted to start the video from this scenic location. As well as visiting the notable graves, I wanted to show you the names and the faces of some of the ordinary servicemen. Sign here to commemorate 50 years of friendship in working together for peace and reconciliation between Staffordshire County Council and the German War Graves Commission in Bremen. In this German cemetery rest 2,143 soldiers of the First World War and 2,786 of the Second World War. Among them lie 5 unknown of the former and 90 unknown of the latter. All died on British territory. I guess there must be lots of people from Germany coming here to visit the gravesite and maybe looking for graves of their relatives. And here's the first notable grave, second name down, Leo Gubrak, born in 1910. He was a member of the 3rd German Antarctic expedition, and at the start of World War II he was a weather observer in the Luftwaffe. He was on a reconnaissance flight in January 1941 when his plane was shot down over the Shetland Islands in Scotland, and he was 30 years old. Okay, this spot is the East Terrace. And there's the mass graves of 4 Zeppelin crew whose aircrafts were downed during the First World War. I'm looking for one in particular. Here we are. Heinrich Matthey. He was a Zeppelin commander, well known in Britain as he was feared as the most daring and audacious of all the Zeppelin commanders. His L-31 aircraft was eventually shot down in flames after incendiary bullets were developed. His body was discovered quite some distance away from the wreckage of his aircraft, and his body was half embedded in a corner of a field in Potters Bar. It appears that he tried to save himself by jumping out of the aircraft before it crashed to the ground. Now, each Zeppelin had a crew of 19 men, many of them manning machine guns. Side by side with their comrades, the crews of 4 Zeppelins shot down over England during the First World War. Here found their eternal resting place. The fallen were brought here from their original burial places at Potters Bar, Great, Burstead and Thiberton. The members of each crew are buried in caskets in one grave. Although there are 5,000 burials here, there aren't 5,000 headstones, as there's 2 names on each headstone, and you've got names on either side of the headstones. Alois Stockel, he was a highly decorated colonel in the Luftwaffe during World War II. He was an observer on a bomber flight over England on August 14th, 1940, when his aircraft was attacked by Spitfires from 609 Squadron of the RAF. His aircraft was shot down by the ace pilot John Dundas, who was himself shot down a few minutes later, and his aircraft landed in the English Channel and his body was never recovered. Hans Hahn, a night fighter ace and recipient of the Knight's Cross of the Iron Cross during World War II. He was the most successful night pilot in the Air Force until his death, and he had claimed 12 aerial victories, all of them at night. He was killed near Grantham in England in October 1941 after his aircraft collided with an aircraft he was targeting, and he was only 22 years of age. Okay, this is block 9, and I understand that these headstones have been placed on their flats because of subsidence. Apologies, I'm going to mispronounce this name, I think. Carl Rishley. He was a World War I flying ace, credited with 8 aerial victories. He was in the army before joining the Air Force, and he was awarded the Iron Cross Second Class after fighting on the Eastern Front. Like many other men who served in the Great War, he served again in the Second World War. On 24th of August 1940, he was shot down over England in a Heinkel bomber, and he bailed out and parachuted into a reservoir where he drowned, and I believe that was Apperton Reservoir in Essex, I believe. And this would be the highest ranking officer in the cemetery, General Maximilian von Herf, a senior SS commander and head of the SS personnel main office. He served in North Africa before he was transferred to the Waffen-SS at the suggestion of Heinrich Himmler, and he actually joined the Nazi Party in 1942. By his own admission, he had knowledge of the final solution, but claimed he had played no part in it. However, he was in Warsaw during the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising and supervised its suppression under the orders of Himmler. Following the uprising, deportations to Auschwitz concentration camp were carried out. He was captured by British forces in 1945. In the same year, he suffered a stroke and died at the age of 52. The cemetery is maintained by the Commonwealth Graves Commission on behalf of the German War Graves Commission. Now there's one other notable grave that I'm looking for, but before that I wanted to just show you some of the graves of the ordinary servicemen. So I just want to show you some of those and tell you a little bit about their story. This is block 12 and I'm looking for the grave of Karl Friedrich Ebe. Okay, here we are. Karl Ebe. He was captured at Cambrai on 21st of November 1917 and he suffered ill health throughout 1918 and he died in January 1919 and the cause of death was carcinoma of the liver, peritonitis and exhaustion. And he was originally buried at a POW cemetery in Oswestry. Joseph Berker, he was a pilot and I presume his aircraft was shot down and he died April 10th, 1941 at the age of 27. Okay, in the same section, first name here, Hans Hahn. He was a lieutenant in the Air Force and he died on a mission probably against Liverpool. And he died when his aircraft flew into a hillside in foggy conditions at Hafod Wen Farm, Nantyglyn in Denbighshire in Wales. And he was only 22 years of age. And he's buried with his 3 crewmates. Ignaz Jordan, Infantry Regiment 186, died of influenza at a POW camp in the Highlands of Scotland in November 1918 at the age of 40. Could have been the Spanish flu. The Spanish flu pandemic was ongoing at that time. Now I found a photo of him on his wedding day and his wife was called Francisca and she died in 1929, burial details unknown. And they had 2 children, both of whom I noticed died in 1942, one in his 20s and the other in his 30s. I looked into that a little bit more and found out that they both died at the Cannock concentration camp in Poland and they had been deported from Frankfurt. So obviously they were a Jewish family. Ignaz Jordan's brother also died in a concentration camp in 1942, but he was at Auschwitz. Field Marshal Ernest Bush. He commanded the 23rd Infantry Division during the invasion of Poland. In 1940 he was appointed commander of the 16th Army and led it during the Battle of France and the 1941 invasion of the Soviet Union. He was dismissed from leading the 16th Army by Adolf Hitler in June 1944, following the collapse of his command in the Soviet Union. He gradually returned to favour with Hitler and was tasked with leading Army Group Northwest in defending the German coastline. He had few resources and lacked the respect of his men. He surrendered to the Allies on May the 4th, 1945, and he died in a POW camp in Aldershot 2 months later. He was 60 years old. I've not been able to locate it, but somewhere in the cemetery there's a cenotaph for Hans Willman von Dresky. He was a U-boat commander, highly regarded, and was renowned for the humane treatment of enemy ships prior to sinking. He was sent on a very dangerous mission to lay mines near the Scottish coast in February 1940, and his vessel, U-boat 33, was attacked, and he and many of his crew were lost at sea after evacuating the vessel. This was a notable incident at the time, because some rotor wheels from an Enigma machine were recovered from the U-boat and sent to codebreakers at Bletchley Park. Although it wasn't until 1942 until the Allies managed to get their hands on an actual Enigma machine.